Evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Prakash Kotadia, who's a partner in tax and regulatory services in DH Consultants Private Limited. He started his career as an independent practitioner and then joined Suresh Surana, where he worked for more than 16 years. He also worked as a senior manager in transfer pricing in PwC. He possesses more than 2 decades of experience in tax and regulatory advisory. His areas of specialization include advising on FEMA, transfer pricing, international and domestic taxation, inbound and outbound investment, expatriate taxation, tax due diligence, and other allied laws. His areas of specialization are IT and ITES, media and entertainment, gem and jewelry. Thank you, sir, for being here today. I request Mr. Vijay Bhatt to offer a small memento as a token of our appreciation.
Good evening, everybody. Today, the subject given to me, borrowing and lending in foreign exchange, foreign currency and rupees, is actually a very, very interesting subject. And practically in everybody's day-to-day practice, we do come across queries from our clients on these issues, both in foreign currency as well as in rupees. And especially now there is a trend of many people settling abroad. Even the other way is also there that people are coming back to India. So in those cases, they have always a query about what will happen to their existing borrowing or lending. Like as my previous colleague was discussing, that after coming to India, the assets which are lying outside India, you are allowed to continue to keep it. So even if some deposits, etc. are lying abroad, then you are allowed to continue even though you become resident in India. So that way, this subject is very interesting, and I have tried to make it more lucrative and simple in language. So then it's easy to understand, and even if anybody has any issues or queries during my presentation, he is free to ask at that time only. No need to wait till it gets over. These are the contents are there of my presentation. Since you all have a hard copy, I will not take time to read this. These are the glossaries I have used in my presentation, because in fact, if you will see in this whole presentation, there are various short forms are used. So that's why I thought of putting these at the beginning only. So then when presentation is going on at that time, people will not struggle to understand what the meaning of that word is there. Statutory framework. Now, what is the statutory framework so far as this regulation is concerned? As now this is, I think, third day of this session, so you all are aware that earlier there was the era of FERA. Post-FERA, FEMA came since 1999 by FEMA law of 2000. Section 6, subsection 3 of FEMA talks about the capital transaction. In India, still there is no 100% capital account convertibility. Current account convertibility is there under FEMA, but capital account transactions are still restricted transaction, and this borrowing and lending falls under capital account transaction. So that's why subsection 3 of section 6 presently regulate it. There are specifically regulations issued to monitor or regulate this transaction. One is a FEMA on borrowing or lending in foreign exchange, FEMA 3. This is dated 3rd May 2000. Actually, this is the date when FEMA regulation came into force. Similarly, for borrowing and lending in rupee, another regulation is regulation 4, same dated. Now, these regulations, although referred to of a 3rd May 2000, but it continuously evolutes, goes on changing by way of various circulars, notification, and generally RBI is a system that on every July of the year, one circular they circulate, which covers all the amendment made during the year. So this is very important that before giving any advice on any FEMA matter, the updated circular is reviewed, because what's happening that in FEMA it's little different compared to income tax. Like in income tax we are quite familiar that if any amendment is made, then against the relevant section prefix will be there, and then you can go down and see that what is the amendment and when it was done. But that is not the situation under FEMA. Under FEMA, if you try to read master circular vis-a-vis regulation, you may sometime found that there are little bit different things are written. The reason being that regulation is not regularly amended, but if you see the master circular, you will find all the updated laws of the land prevailing at that time. So that's why master circular is very important to refer vis-a-vis regulation while providing advice to any clients. First we start with borrowing in foreign currency, because amongst the four sub area of my presentation, this is the most complicated and most utilized. You can say that practically every second company will have some borrowing in foreign currency. So this regulation is applicable and is very important to understand this well. Under borrowing in foreign currency, I have covered borrowing by an AD. Even AD can borrow. AD is authorized dealer bank. All banks are called as a AD in FEMA language. Borrowing by person other than AD. This is where all our corporates, clients, etc. will fall. ECB and trade credit, external commercial borrowings. FCEB, FCCB, and what are the compliances required. First we start with borrowing by an AD. Generally authorized dealer are allowed to borrow in foreign currency. What are the circumstances when they are allowed to do? Borrowings from its head office or branch. As everybody of you will be aware that as of now in India, foreign banks are not permitted to do business of its own. So whatever foreign banks are operating in India, take it Citibank, HSBC, Standard Chartered, these all banks are operating as a branch of the foreign company. So these entities, these branches are allowed to take loan from their head office abroad up to 50% of its unimpaired Tier 1 capital or US dollar 10 billion, whichever is higher. So this is what the restriction is kept on the quantum. Overseas branch of an AD. Now exactly other way can be there. Our banks, they have branches outside India. All our big bank, State Bank, Bank of India, Bank of Baroda have branches all over the world. So they are also allowed to borrow in foreign currency in a normal course of banking business outside India, subject to guidelines of RBI and regulatory authority of the country where the branch is located. So in a different country, whatever regulations are there, subject to that, they are allowed to borrow. In addition to that, authorized dealer can borrow from bank or a financial institution outside India for the purpose of granting pre-shipment or post-shipment credit to its export constitution. So even Indian banks are allowed to borrow from abroad for granting to their customer pre-shipment, post-shipment credit, etc. Now we go to the persons other than AD. Under persons other than AD, the simple transaction which we may come across is a person resident in India can borrow from an overseas bank for following. This generally happens when any Indian entity has some project contract outside India. So when they execute that project contract outside India, they may require some money there. And instead of remitting that from India, company may want to avail facility from outside India. So this is permissible. Since this, whatever entity will be there, project office or branch office, whatever, this is not the separate entity. So far as FEMA is concerned, this entity is a resident entity, and that's why this regulation applies. So if it is for the execution of turnkey project outside India, execution of any civil construction contract, or exports on a deferred credit term, even there is some export facilities required there, then also it is possible. This is subject to terms and conditions stipulated by the authority granting approval for project contracts. So from where you got that project, for that whatever terms and conditions are there, that needs to be adhered to, and in accordance with the export of goods and services. Because as I said that this entity is a resident entity. So whatever project it is executing outside India, for that entity is it a export of services. So that's why there is a separate regulation of export of goods and services. Adherence to that is also required. In addition to that, the another situation arises, which is I can say that the day-to-day situation, that any entity in India importing from outside India, then in that case, whatever credit facility given by the vendor, again that is nothing but indirectly a borrowing, because you are remitting that money after some time. So that also is permissible, but the period allowed is only 6 months. So for import of goods into India, an Indian importer can avail foreign currency credit for a period not exceeding 6 months, extended by overseas supplier. Now this invariably we have seen in practice. People are not aware that this is allowed only for 6 months. And many a time we have seen, and especially when import is there from the group concern, that remittance is not made within 6 months. And even auditors also generally are not familiar with so much about the FEMA regulation, and they do not report contravention. But actually it is a contravention if within 6 months import payment is not made. Then you have to take approval from your authorized dealer. Otherwise, it is considered as a contravention of FEMA. But this being a very common feature, it is never taken seriously by even authorized dealer, because otherwise authorized dealer is always aware. Import comes through authorized dealer. So he is aware, bill of entry is there with him, that this is already overdue, 6 months is passed. But generally no action is taken, and that's why as there are no major consequences on this. But we as a chartered accountant, it's our duty that at least we should report this into notes to account. Borrowing by resident individual from cross relative. Now this is also very common feature. We have some relative who is staying abroad. We are in need of money. He has a surplus fund available. Then he can always lend to us, and we as a resident individual can borrow from him. The condition is there that it should not be more than 250,000 US dollar. Maturity period should be 1 year. It cannot be more than that. Loan should be interest free. Now this is what the major hurdle is there. In today's world, nobody wants to give anybody anything interest free unless there is some other consideration is there. So that's why such transactions are not very common. Loan should be received either by way of inward remittance or by debit or NRE or FCNR account of the lender. If that lender has a NRE or FCNR account in India, then from that account he can pay, or it has to come from foreign country for foreign remittance. But if non-resident has a NRO account, then from that account loan cannot be taken. I believe that difference between NRO, NRE, this whole thing would have been already discussed in the earlier sessions. So NRE, FCA and FCNR account are nothing but a foreign currency account. So it is as good as a foreign currency. So the condition is very clear that money has to, foreign exchange has to come to India, then only it is permissible under this route.
Sir, what about remittances by
Non-resident
non-resident companies?
company giving to?
From outside, borrowings by them from outside.
No, so the borrower is an Indian company.
It's a non-resident company.
Borrower is a non-resident company. How borrower can be a non-resident? Are you talking of NRI? Means NRI is staying outside India or? Okay. No, but if he is in India, then first we have to determine what is his status. Why he is in India. If he is in India for taking up employment or carrying on business in India, then automatically his status becomes resident. Only if he is on the visit to India, continues to his employment or a business outside India, then only his non-resident status continue under FEMA. Under FEMA and income tax, determining residential status difference is there. Under income tax, we look only on the number of days. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So then they are allowed. They can take it. Exactly, it's a reverse the situation which I discussed earlier, that Indian company has got some project or turnkey project outside India. Then if they want to borrow, they can borrow from Indian parent or from any bank outside India, or the reverse, as I discussed, that foreign bank has a branches in India. So then those branches are allowed to borrow from their head office as well as from a local bank in India. So it is permissible. Now under ECB and trade credit, these are the...
Sir, you mentioned regarding that minimum maturity should be 1 year.
Yeah.
What happens within less than 1 year one wants
Then it is
to
allowed.
repay?
It is within
That
1
is
year allowed. Yeah, yeah. More than 1 year is not allowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is maximum.
Sorry. Minimum should be 1 year. So less than 1 year is not allowed. It has to be more than that.
Say one wants to repay within 1 year, that is not permitted?
Not permissible, yeah. Because when you take loan, these are the conditions you have to satisfied with.
Some individual has come here before 3 months. Let us assume that he has come on 1st January 2014 in India. So far he was NRI. Now he has come to start a business in India. And he has borrowed some money from his friends of say $100,000 US. And as far as he is concerned, so far he was NRI because he has come here. Now, whether he can borrow the money, suppose today we are looking at that, whether he has made any contravention. He has come here for the settlement here in India to do the business. So 180 days, 182 days, that clause is not been applicable. But his intention here is to start the business. So whether he has contravened the sanctions and rules or not.
No, loan he has taken from whom?
His friends from overseas here.
Outside India.
No, he has brought in money here. He has asked his friends to deposit the money in his account.
So after, no, not I think his own fund. You are talking of loan. So after becoming resident, he is taking loan from a non-resident.
In a 3 months' time, can we establish that he becomes a resident?
Yeah, the moment there is an intention to stay in India for a unspecified period, then you become resident. So then it's a situation of resident borrowing from non-resident.
So part B is applicable.
Yeah, correct.
Are there any restrictions in utilization of the loan taken from a relative?
Restricts. You are talking of a resident.
Taking a loan from a non-resident relative.
So we are talking of this situation. Sorry. 1 minute. This one. No. In this there is no restriction. Utilization there is no restriction, and use is allowed. You can use for anything. See, the major hurdle here is it's a interest free. So only close relative only it's possible. No commercial transaction is possible in such cases. See, generally such transactions are restricted because India do not want foreign currency to come to India in the form of loan, which then there is a restriction to pay back, because general trend is there that dollar is strengthening, rupee is weakening. So if you have to repay in a foreign currency, then in that case there is a foreign exchange outflow, which is discouraged. In the whole this my presentation, if you see, the message which is coming from the regulatory authority, they do not want India to be burdened by the forex loans, which are to be repaid in a forex loss, in a foreign currency, as far as possible, other than for a business transaction. So all regulation, if you see, are drafted that way. Keeping that in mind, at the back of mind of RBI is there that they do not want more foreign currency to come into India in the form of loan. So far as it is coming in the form of equity, we are very happy under FDI regulation. But this regulation is comparatively more, you can say, regulated. Yeah. Now under this, these are the few transactions which are governed under ECB. The first one is a loan from foreign investor group company, loan from overseas bank, buyer's credit, supplier's credit, optionally stroke partly convertible preference share, FCCB and FCEB. So these all one by one I have covered in my presentation. We first start with ECB. As I told you that this is the most important and most complicated regulation of the whole my presentation. In ECB, there are two routes are there. One is the automatic route and another is a approval route. Automatic route means no approval, nothing is required. You can straight away borrow and you have to do some compliance with your authorized dealer. Again, I believe that within these 3 days you people would have understood that now under FEMA, the powers are delegated to authorized dealer. So practically for everything you have to go to authorized dealer. You are not allowed directly go to the RBI unless you have to seek some approval. For that also applications needs to be routed through authorized dealer. So the more and more onus is there on the authorized dealer to ensure KYC of their customer. So even any application goes to the RBI, first authorized dealer is indirectly giving his concurrence by routing application through him. So under automatic route again, no approval, nothing is required, but there are certain compliances needs to be done, and in that the major one is obtaining registration number from the RBI, which as and when it will come we will discuss. Approval route, wherever automatic route is not allowed, you have to go for approval route. Now in FEMA, one very important thing is there, that comparatively size of FEMA Act, if somebody sees it is too small. And if we see income tax that's so large, big. So what's there in FEMA? What's the stand RBI is taking? That unless something is specifically allowed, you have to assume that it is not allowed. You can't take a stand that if something is silent, so that means it is allowed. Time and again we have experienced that wherever there is an ambiguity, and if somebody has taken advantage of that, where is the restriction? There is no restriction, so I have done. So, but then in practice, RBI's view is there where it is written that it is allowed. So you have to go by that. Unless specifically allowed, if something is not written, that means you have to come to us through authorized dealer for taking approval. So this compounding, as we are listening that in recent past last 2-3 years, many cases are going to compounding. That's the reason that under FERA people thought that FEMA has gone, now FERA is there, so it's very liberal and we do the transaction. And then when it is noticed by RBI, then they report it for a compounding. What is not covered under automatic route? Automatic route is not available for what? For on-lending. Naturally, they don't want you to do a financing activity of bringing money from abroad and giving loan here. Otherwise, everybody know that rate prevailing overseas is much lower compared to India. Then people can start business of financing. So which is not allowed. Investment in capital market again for rigging price, this, that, secondary market, it's not allowed. Acquiring company in India, real estate sector. Now if you see these are all very sensitive sectors are there. So they have kept restriction on that you can't bring the money from abroad for doing any of such activity. Working capital, general corporate purpose, earlier this used to be allowed, but then later on there are no thin capitalization rules in India, and that's why people have started misusing that. People will, all multinational will start company in India with a capital of 100,000 Indian rupee. That is what minimum, because ROC want. Otherwise even they will keep less than that. And then rest of the all financing will be done through loan. So they wanted to curtail that. So that's why restriction brought that for working capital and general corporate purpose, automatic route is not allowed. Now, recent past about a year back, they have allowed it, but under approval route with certain condition, which I have covered in my presentation. Repayment of rupee loan, again logic is same, that you can't repay a higher interest rupee loan by bringing money from abroad at a lower rate of interest, because ultimately you have to send back that money outside India. So which is discouraged. And acquisition of land, again it's part of the real estate sector. who are the eligible borrower? It's not that you and me also can go and ask that I want to borrow from somebody under automatic route. So Indian companies in manufacturing, infrastructure, real industry sector. When this regulation came, nobody understood what is the real industrial sector. First of all, people got confused with real estate. Real estate is something which is restricted, and what is real industrial sector? At least 6 months to 1 year, there was no clarity that who are covered under real industrial sector. And these had really created chaos at that time, because many software companies, they brought money under this route, and then they were not very clear that whether they fall, because they are not manufacturing, they are not infrastructure, are they real industrial sector? On this clarity was not there, but later on RBI clarified that those companies which are engaged in a specified services, which are hotel, hospital and software, then these companies are called as a real industrial sector, and so they are allowed to bring ECB under automatic route. Then units in SEZ for own requirement, SEZ cannot transfer or own lend ECB fund to sister concern or any units in DTA. Now again, you are SEZ, so you are allowed, so you brought money, and then you should not transfer it to your other company or a DTA, domestic tariff area. Infrastructure finance company except financial intermediary, NBFCs, IFC, AFCs. Now NBFC, etc., there are some regulations are there. It's not that straight away they can bring money from abroad and start lending here. NGOs and MIF, that all conditions I have discussed in a later part of my presentation. NGOs, MIF engage in microfinance activity subject to prescribed criteria, SIDB. These are the eligible borrowers. Who are recognized lender? Again, this is mainly to curb that money cannot come from any hanky-panky sources. Otherwise, somebody has some source outside India, and as it is commonly known that people are routing their undisclosed money from abroad. So then in that case, you may say that, oh, in Cayman Island, ABC Company Limited is there, that company has given me loan. So it is my loan. So that is again not allowed. The lender who are allowed, that also are considered or listed, I can say. International banks, international capital markets, multilateral financial institutions such as IFC, ADB, CDC, regional financial institution, government-owned development financial institution, export credit agency, supplier of equipment, foreign collaborator and foreign equity holder. Generally, foreign equity holder is something which is very common in our day-to-day practice which we come across. There also some restriction is there. Again, in foreign equity holder, other than erstwhile OCB, OCB used to be one separate entity, overseas corporate body. Now it is no longer recognized. So it cannot be a OCB. The condition is there that if up to $5 million, then the foreign equity holder should be holding minimum 25% share capital in the Indian company. And if it is exceeding 5 million, then over and above 25% share capital condition, the debt equity ratio, ECB equity ratio, should be maintained at 4:1. So this is indirectly something to curb thin capitalization. Permitted end use. Again, there is a restriction. It's not that you brought money under automatic route and then you use for whatever purpose you want to use. It can be used only for the import of services, technical law, payment of license fee in case of company in manufacturing and infrastructure sector, import of capital goods, new project, any new project if you are establishing, you can use for that. Modernization, expansion of existing production unit in real industrial specified sector. Real industrial I have already explained. Interest during construction period for Indian company which are in infrastructure sector. Now this is only for infrastructure sector. So for paying your interest, you can use your ECB money. Overseas direct investment in joint venture wholly owned subsidiary. Now this is a very good liberalization is there. That even using a foreign currency, you can use that money to make investment in some other country for your subsidiary or a joint venture. And acquisition of shares in the disinvestment process. When there is some disinvestment process of the government is going on, or PSU, etc., you can utilize money for that. Now we come to for a specific entities, like for example NBFCs or IFC, for on lending to infrastructure sector. So as earlier I said, It is not there that they can bring money and start lending business with that money. There is a restriction. It should be only for infrastructure sector. AFC for financing the import of infrastructure equipment. Capital expenditure for maintenance and operation of toll system for road and highway. SIDBI can borrow to lend to borrower in MSME sector. Payment of spectrum allocation 2G and lending to self-help group or a microcredit for microfinance activity by NGO. So these are the restrictions are there for end use. Infrastructure sector covers, because if you see everywhere in the permitted end use, many places it's allowed to infrastructure sector. So what all fall under infrastructure sector? So power, telecommunication, railway, roads, including bridges, seaport and airport, industrial park, urban infrastructure, mining, exploration and refining and cold storage and cold room facility. So these are only covered under infrastructure sector. Amount and maturity. What is the limit? So companies other than service sector can go up to as high as $750 million. Service sector, 3 service sector are defined. Hotel, hospital and software, they are allowed. Up to 200 million. NGOs up to $10 million. NBFCs up to 75% of their own fund, and SIDBI up to 50% of their own fund. Now there is a maturity period restriction also. It's not open-ended. So when the ECB is up to $20 million or its equivalent, the average maturity period has to be 3 years. And if it is about 20 million, up to 750 million, because 750 million is something which is highest covered under automatic route, then the average maturity period has to be 5 years. So this clearly shows intention of the RBI that they want that even if some foreign currency is coming to India, then it is for a little longer period. So then it is utilized for good of the economy, and then even if that money is going back in foreign currency, then we are okay. By the time probably enough employment or enough resources would have been generated using that money. Yeah.
While you have given a limit of ECB borrowing which covers the software sectors. So when no one is eligible, how can this limit come, sir?
Who are not eligible?
In an eligible borrower,
Yeah.
things that manufacture, infrastructure and real industrial sector.
Correct.
In real industrial sectors, 3 categories are given.
Yeah.
And manufacturing, so software is neither manufacturing nor in infrastructure.
No, but software is covered under real industrial. So there is a separate limit for that, no? You see. For hotel, hospital and software it is 200 million. It will come, no? See what I suggest. You are free to ask question, but it's better that whenever that particular thing comes, then ask then, because otherwise see we will get diverted to that and then again we have to come back here. So better that we go with the flow of the slide. That specifically it's there. What you are talking about is there in my presentation. Yeah. What is a cost? How much interest you can give? It's not that any amount, whatever you feel appropriate, you can give as an interest. So then there is a condition that if your average maturity period is 3 to 5 years, then it should be 350 basis point over 6 month LIBOR. So it cannot be more than this, and LIBOR presently is roaming around, I believe, between 0.30 to 0.5. So that means your cost of borrowing will be around 3.75 to 4%. For more than 5 years, 500 basis point over 6 months LIBOR. And this should include all in cost, rate of interest, other fee, expenses in foreign currency except commitment fee, prepayment fee, and fee payable and payment of withholding tax in Indian rupees. So except this, everything is covered in this. It's not like our housing loan. When they come to us for a housing loan, they will say rate of interest is only so much, and there will be so many other levies they will add into that. So here that all things are not allowed, except whatever is excluded, everything is covered in this. In case of fixed rate loan, the swap cost plus margin should be the equivalent of the floating rate plus applicable margin. Now we go to the approval route. So something which is not covered under automatic route, everything falls under approval route. But here also then some restriction is there, that who are eligible borrowers. So again, any Tom, Dick and Harry cannot go under approval route also and can say that I want approval to borrow money from abroad. Exim Bank for own lending and specific purpose. Banks, financial institutions participating in textile, steel structuring, restructuring subject to certain condition. ECB with minimum average maturity of 5 years. Housing finance, SPV. I will not take time to read this whole thing. There are various eligible borrowers are there. Here the restriction is there that if some company is under investigation. Since it is under investigation, although it is covered under automatic route, for rest of the all criteria it is satisfying, but due to whatever reason it is under investigation, then those company also becomes ineligible under automatic route and they have to come under approval route because some investigation is going on against them. All cases falling outside the purview of automatic route and average maturity period will also be covered under approval route. So that average maturity period, whatever we discuss, if we propose to borrow for period less than that, then in that case we have to go to RBI for a specific approval. Who are recognized lender? Now whoever are recognized lender under automatic route, all are covered under here. In addition to that, the only small change is that when it is coming from a foreign equity holder, there the debt equity ratio was 4:1. Here under approval route it is 7:1. Over and above that, another two categories are there which is allowed under approval route. Indirect equity holder, subject to indirect holding of at least 51% by the lender in the Indian company. So your parent, instead of parent directly giving loan to you, if its parent or it's another group company, they can also give loan subject to condition that even their indirect holding is 51%. And the next is also group company provided both borrower and foreign lender are subsidiary of the same parent. So that is possible. That rigidity is not there that only the company which has made investment in the company, in the Indian company, loans will come only from that company. Permitted, yeah, permitted. Yeah. So next slide is that, permitted end use. So permitted end use also again, whatever is there under automatic routes are all permitted end use here. Over and above that, something further is allowed. Like if you have seen there, for spectrum allocation it was 2G. So 2G is falling under automatic route, but 3G falls under approval route. Repayment of rupee loan availed from domestic banking system. Now this is which was restricted under automatic route, but under approval route it is allowed that you are borrowing for repaying for a domestic borrowing whatever is there. Repayment of rupee loan and a fresh rupee capital expenditure for company with consistent forex earning up to 10 billion scheme. US dollar 10 billion. So the consistent earning, it's a very large company and the forex earning is so much, then they are allowed. And the general corporate purpose, which I was telling that which was restricted, which now they have permitted in the month of September, 4th September 2013. With effect from 4th September 2013, eligible Indian borrower can avail ECB from their foreign equity holder for general corporate purpose subject to the following conditions. But that some 2-3 conditions are there and it is subject to approval route, not the automatic route. Minimum paid up equity capital of 25% will be held directly by the overseas lender, which is there in even automatic route also. Such ECB will not be used for any purpose not permitted under the extant ECB guideline. So, and the present ECB guideline, something which is not permitted at all, so then money will not be utilized for that. And repayment of the principal shall commence only after completion of minimum average maturity period of 7 years. So, temporary working capital financing cannot be done with this. The period is also increased. Even under automatic route it was 3 years, 5 years. Here it is 7 years. So it's a large period. Amount, there the limit was up to 750 million. So if you are going above 750 million, you are under automatic route. For this specified 3 service sector, their limit was 200 million. So if above 200 million you want, then you have to come under automatic route. And maturity period is not specified here. So then maturity period will be decided by RBI on case by case basis because this is approval route. But in practice, our experience is there that RBI discourage ECB and they don't easily give approval. All-in cost is same, what we discussed in the earlier slide. What is average maturity period? Now this is something even everybody really struggle. And if you see under all route, average maturity period is one of the condition. So then in practice we have seen that people do struggle to count, because generally what happens when you take ECB, it comes in tranches. Similarly, payment is made in tranches. So in that case, to compute that whether you are satisfying condition of average maturity period of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, how do you compute? So that's why intentionally I have added one case study in my presentation. So in this case, if you see, the borrowing is 250,000, 2 billion. First tranche came on 11th May of 0.75 thousand, second on 5th June 0.50, and third on 31st August. So see how it is calculated. On 11th May, your balance is 0.75. 0.75 balance remain for 24 days because your next tranche came on 5th of June. So 11th May to 5th of June is a 24 days, and here days are calculated assuming year of a 360 days for a simplicity purpose. So for 24 days you have utilized 0.75 million. So your average maturity for that amount is 0.0250. So like that I have done, and then there is a repayment also. So repayment, if you see, every 6 months repayment is happening after December 08. So if somebody sees the first tranche has come on 11th May 07 and first repayment has made on 27 December 08. So that is around only 1.5 years. So then somebody will say that where average 3-year maturity period is not made, but it's not like that. If you see the calculation, at the end of the repayment of old loan, your average maturity comes to 3.2851. Then you are eligible. So it's not that the 3 year has to be computed from the receipt of first tranche to repayment of the first installment. Under approval route, there are some restriction on creation of guarantee and security also. For example, for bringing loan from overseas, you cannot ask your banker to give you a guarantee. So bank, financial institution, NBFC, not allowed to give any guarantee or letter of credit or undertaking or letter of comfort for ECB. So you have to bring ECB on your resources, your standing, your strength of the balance sheet. If another banks give you guarantee, then actually it's as more as they are assisting you in financing, which is not allowed. Security you have to give. Nobody is going to give you loan without security. So that it's left to the borrower to decide that what he want to give as a security. Creation of charge over immovable property or sale subject to prescribed condition. Some conditions are prescribed. Subject to that, whatever immovable properties are there with the borrower, he can create charge on that. And issue of corporate or personal guarantee is permissible. So the directors of the company, promoters of the company are free to give a personal guarantee for a loan taken by their company. Parking ECB proceeds abroad. Now when some big project is there for which ECB is taken, ECB is allowed, permission is taken, even ECB is released. But you may want some of that money for import of capital asset, capital goods. Then in that case, if ECB is brought into India, then your foreign currency is converted into Indian rupee, and then subsequently you have to remit it for acquiring some capital asset, capital goods. Then in that case, you will hit by the difference in the exchange rate. So to protect from that, as per your projection, if already you have planned something to utilize that ECB in foreign currency only, then in those cases you are allowed to park it outside India. Similarly, you may not require the whole bunch of money immediately. Then in that case also you are allowed to keep money outside India and bring as and when need arises, but with certain restriction. So the restrictions are ECB proceed for foreign currency expenditure may be work. As I said that if you have to incur some foreign currency expenditure, you keep it outside India, and from there and there only you can make the payment. ECB proceed park overseas permitted to be invested in the following assets outside India. When it's lying outside India, you will not allow it to lie in any current account. So then where you can invest that money? So deposit or certificate of deposit with credit rating of at least AA minus by specified credit rating agency, treasury bill or monetary instrument with 1 year maturity, deposit with overseas branch of Indian Bank. So these are the place where you can temporarily park your money. ECB for rupee expenditure to be remitted to India immediately and parking of proceed overseas is not allowed. So it's clearly only for a rupee expenditure, then you have to immediately bring it to India. It has come into your bank account. So you are parked outside India, but it is now your money. So your day starts from that. No. Your day starts from the day you have withdrawn the money. Because the lender has given you money. Now it is because of your compulsion you are not bringing it to India. But now as per your balance sheet, it is your liability. Or the day the money is released, you have to pass accounting entry in your books. So you become borrower now. So it starts from that day. No, either route. Secure. Mm-hmm.
Creation of charge or removal property,
Mm-hmm.
that can be done only under the approval. That's not possible under auto.
Okay. On the top I have written approval route. Okay. No, but I think under automatic route also it is allowed. Yeah. Refinancing prepayment. Now we have already taken the ECB. Is it allowed to refinance? Maturity period has come, but you are not in a position to pay. Then what do you do? So that is allowed. Fresh ECB is allowed to be raised, but the condition is there that it should be lower all-in cost. So whatever previous your ECB was there, now you can't refinance that ECB by borrowing at a higher rate of interest, and outstanding maturity of the original ECB is maintained. So by any chance, if you are getting a ECB now at a lower rate, then you are allowed to do that. It's not that since you don't have money, that's why only you refinance. Sometimes you have money, but you have now another lender available who is ready to give at a lower rate. So then you are allowed to take, but the condition is there that you have to maintain that original maturity period. Prepayment, reverse. Now you have surplus of fund, you want to prepay. That also is possible. So if it is borrowed under automatic route, then up to $500 million subject to compliance with minimum average maturity period as applicable. So if it was for a 3-year minimum average maturity period, then you have to keep it for 3 years. If 3 years is over, after that you are allowed to prepay it. Under approval route, prepayment exceeding $500 million. If it is exceeding 500 million, then only under approval route you are allowed to prepay that. Conversion of ECB into equity. Now this is also possible, that foreign parent company has initially financed Indian company by way of a loan as a ECB. Now instead of taking that money back, they want equity shares against that. Originally the object was there that it will be a loan and it will come back. But then now looking at the business need or whatever, if they want to convert into ECB, then it is permissible. The condition is there that under FDI regulation, you should be covered under automatic route of FDI or whatever sectoral cap is there. If for your particular industry there is a sectoral cap for FDI, then after conversion, you should not be breaching that sectoral cap. And the pricing of the share should be as per the guideline under FAMAS. Under FDI, guideline is given. So at the time of conversion also, you have to apply that guideline, and accordingly against ECB, that many equity shares can be given. CCD. CCD, CCPS all falls under ECB only. CCD means what? Compulsorily convertible debentures. That is equity, yeah. So, no. So, on that, FEMA is silent. So, then in that case, you have to go to RBI for approval. Because there is no discussion under FEMA. As I mentioned, that unless something is specifically stated, you can't do it. Okay, okay. Maybe then I am not aware of that. But if confusion is there, so again, the logic is that don't do anything without RBI approval. Otherwise, you are inviting compounding. And it is always better. See, if you have to face RBI, better face it today instead of doing it later on. Because later on it will be more painful. So whatever has to happen, let it happen today. If they want to say no, let them say no. So then you will be in a position to find some other alternative. But after doing that, then the condition is there under compounding always that first of all you undo that, which probably may not be possible. Because by the time your financial condition may not allow you to do that. And then you have to go for a compounding. So there is a double hit. And compounding is not always easy alternative. Sometimes they may refer it to ED also. And if it goes to ED, then it's a draconian because then straight away you are inviting for a prosecution, etc. So FEMA, we have to be very, very careful while advising to client. And if even iota of doubt is there, better to seek clarification from the authorized dealer. So if authorized dealer is confident of that, you get a one letter and keep in your file. And if he is not confident of that, he will refer your matter to the RBI. But not to take risk with the FEMA regulation. Non-convertible, optionally convertible or partly convertible. Now earlier, few years back, confusion was there that where does this all fall? Because it is in the long run it is going to convert into equity, but presently it is in the form of loan, preference share, quasi equity. Where does it fall, whether FDI or ECB? So then RBI clarified that anything which is not straight away equity will all fall under ECB. Otherwise, this is also everybody was trying that better we bring under FDI rule and as a not as a equity but a preference share, and then over a period of time we redeem the preference share. So you are not governed by ECB regulation and still you are able to utilize the foreign money. So then they stopped it. So but after recently there is some little you can say liberalization is there. So up to 30 December, anything which is non-convertible, optionally convertible or partly convertible. So except plain vanilla equity, nothing is covered under FDI. Everything falls under ECB. So then for bringing that capital by way of preference share, you have to comply with the all ECB regulation what we discussed. No, compulsory convertible is equity. Yeah, because from day one it's very clear. Your schedule is there, conversion period is there, conversion rate is there, everything is there. So post 30 December, there was a small liberalization in this, that subject to the prescribed condition, optionality clause allowed in the compulsory or mandatorily convertible preference share to be issued. What is that? Although this is a very long provision is there and there are so many conditions are there. But in brief, if I will tell that like presently either it is a equity or it is a ECB. Very stringent. So under this now, even the foreign shareholders are allowed to put a clause that over a period of time, if they want to go back, then they are allowed to have a put option. So then in the agreement itself, when the money is coming, they keep a put option that after certain year, if I want to exit, then I can exit subject to the pricing guideline under FDI. So in this case, here little window is open that even though you have come as an equity shareholder, still you can take back your money. The other is there, which is a circular number 84 dated 6 January. So it actually simultaneously came. Indian company may issue non-convertible redeemable preference share to non-resident shareholder by way of a distribution as bonus. So now you have an equity shareholder, they are non-resident. You have a substantial reserve is there, but instead of giving a bonus in the form of equity share, you want to give in the form of non-convertible redeemable preference share, then now it is allowed post 30 December. But in this case actually there is no inflow. It's a just passing of general entry. You are converting your reserve into equity. Second one. Indian company is a foreign equity shareholder. It is a foreign equity. Now it has a substantial reserve. They want to utilize that reserve. In normal course utilization of reserve, only two options are there. Either you pay dividend or you pay bonus or at the most buyback. Here this is another window is open that you can utilize that reserve for issue of non-convertible or a redeemable preference share to your equity shareholder. So equity shareholder will receive as a bonus instead of equity share non-convertible or a redeemable preference share. Generally the object here is there that preference share, then you have like some certain fixed percentage of dividend. So that's where this is generally used, that if the prescribed rate is there, then foreign investor has some comfort that okay, this much dividend is going to come. That's why. Although this is a new thing is there, so not yet very, you can say, yeah.
All the reporting compliances have to be done for ECB.
Yeah. No. For this though, this will be covered under FDI. Yeah. We discussed the branches of a foreign bank in India. Pardon? Subordinate? What is subordinate debt? But they are allowed for a loan also. See, it's a branch of a foreign company. So equity will not be there. So in the branch of a foreign company in India, any bank, you take Citibank, HSBC, under, subject to the limit what we discussed, they are allowed to take loan. In fact, they are running business through that loan only. Now we go to the trade credit. No, but whether interest, what is the rate of interest? I don't think there is any ceiling on rate of interest. It's not there. No. You see the borrowing in foreign currency. No, it's not there. You see slide number 7. Borrowing from its head office or branch or correspondence outside India up to 50% of its unimpaired tier 1 capital or US dollar 10 million, whichever is higher, subject to conditions of the RBI. So there will be some certain prescribed condition over there. Which one? No, that is not for that. That is for a ECB under approval route. That's not for that. Yeah, now we come to the trade credit. So trade credit is something like the credit which you are getting from your vendor against import. So as earlier I mentioned that up to 6 months it is allowed. The moment it crosses 6 months, automatically it partake character of the trade credit. So you are supposed to inform to your authorized dealer, and So for trade credit, certain restrictions are there. First of all, reporting is there. So then your banker is supposed to keep track of it, that now you have crossed 6 months. So that's why intimation to bank is required. But as I told that in practice, hardly it happens. And generally even after delay of 6 months, if you get your, if you make payment, then nobody looks into that. So that is as such allowed. But trade credit is something which is like anything beyond 6 months and up to 3 years. That falls under trade credit. Above 3 years, it goes as ECB. So trade credit means a credit for import extended by the overseas supplier, supplier's credit or a buyer's credit. AD is authorized to approve trade credit and report to the RBI. So the moment 6 months is over, you are supposed to intimate to AD and AD is supposed to intimate to RBI. Trade credit amount eligible up to $20 million per import transaction. For capital goods, it is up to 5 years. For non-capital goods, it is 1 year. Credit period to be reckoned from the date of the shipment. All-in cost ceiling 350 basis point over 6 month LIBOR. So if in the import document condition is there that if you are paying after 6 months, then interest will be charged. Then that interest cannot be more than 350 basis point plus 6 months LIBOR. AD can issue LC, guarantee, letter of undertaking or comfort up to 3 years. So up to 3 years it can go because it is not ECB, it is trade credit. But if it goes beyond 3 years, then ECB regulation will be applicable. No, the moment you crosses 3 years, then you have to go to the RBI for approval. So then whatever those conditions are there, if you are fitting into that, they will allow you. Yeah. In fact, immediately on completion of 6 months, you have to intimate to AD. So in the reality, if it is intimated to AD, AD will be after you to see that you get your, you repay as early as possible. See, this is generally happening. We have seen whenever there is a import from the group company. So people are doing financing to the Indian company through this route without being caught anywhere. They don't want to do ECB, etc. Yeah. You represent to RBI that the quality of goods was not proper or it's not as per what has been agreed. See, again here RBI don't want, no, you pay only. It's a foreign currency. The RBI will be more than happy you don't pay. But their object is there that in the guise of this, you are not availing foreign currency loan. That's why restriction is there. If you are successful that your vendor forgo that money, RBI will be more than happy. You write off here and income tax will take 30% from you. Both, yeah. I know. No reporting. I know. So that you have to file that form separately, soft tax form. See, that's why these things are never reported. And even auditor also doesn't observe it. So in practice, so many people are using this route. But nowadays, at least I have seen that Big Four auditors specifically, they go into your creditor list and wherever foreign creditors are more than 6 months, then they are insisting that you report to the authorized dealer, otherwise we will put note.
So, but they accept that if you report it to authorized,
See, so far as I told that here RBI don't want to push you that you make remittance. Their object is only that you are not monitoring plus not misusing this route for financing. As I told you that in many companies we have seen that whenever there is an import from your group concern, you don't pay only. You use this money as indirectly as a trade credit or a ECB. So instead of giving a finance straight away, they have given you a goods and then don't take money. So then this is what they want to monitor. FCEB, foreign currency exchangeable bond. Now this is a unique bond introduced by RBI. I think it is there since 3-4 years. but up till now I have not heard of any company has issued this. In this, what happens? That one particular company is there, they want to borrow in a foreign currency. That company is holding shares of any of its group company. So under FCEB, this is little difference than FCCB. FCCB is straight away you are issuing a foreign currency convertible bond, which later on over a period of time as per the terms will get converted into equity share. FCEB is a exchangeable bond. So the difference is here that you are getting a money on the basis of your holding in your subgroup concern. So the primary condition is there that you should be holding shares of some of your group company. That group company has to be a listed company, and as per the terms of the bond, at the time of conversion, the bondholder will get share of that other group company, not your company. So that's what the little difference is there. In case of FCCB, you are required to give your share only. So here it is nothing but see, some company is having some investment in a group company, which is presently they don't want to liquidate, but they are in need of money. They are expecting that our group company is going to perform well. So then why do I liquidate at this stage? I don't want to liquidate, but I need money. So my money is stuck up in the investment. So then this is the temporary, you can say that the financing is there, but gradually when these bonds are converted, your investment in your group company will go to the bondholder. So these bonds are expressed in foreign currency. The principal interest is in foreign currency, issued by a issuing company and subscribed to by a person resident outside India in foreign currency and exchangeable into equity share of another company, that is offered company. Issuing company shall be part of the promoter group of the offered company. Unless both are of the same group, you cannot commit shares of some other company to foreign bondholder. And shall hold the equity share being offered at the time of issuance of FCEB. Offered company shall be listed company. Offered company has to be listed company. Issuing company may not be listed company, but offered company has to be issuing listed company, and which should be eligible to receive FDI, because ultimately what will happen when the exchangeable bond will take place, the issuing company will have a foreign shareholder. So unless that issuing company is eligible to receive FDI, you cannot use that or avail FCCB or ECB. Eligible subscriber, who are eligible subscriber, entities complying with FDI policy and adhering to sectoral cap, entity prohibited by SEBI are not eligible to subscribe to FCEB. An Indian company which is not eligible to raise fund from Indian capital market, including the company which has been restrained from accessing the security market by SEBI, will not be eligible to issue FCEB. FCEB requires prior approval of RBI. The end use, whatever money comes, you can use for overseas direct investment in wholly owned subsidiary or joint venture. By promoter company, so you can further give it to your another group company. They can utilize it for a end use as prescribed under ECB, not allowed to invest in a capital market or a real estate. Pricing of FCEB, there is a prescribed pricing is there, which is normal for any FDI. All in cost as per ECB policy, average maturity minimum 5 years, parking FCEB proceed abroad as per ECB policy. FCCB, as we discussed, that you are offering your own company's share. Now we go to the key compliances. What are the key compliances under ECB? As I said that even for automatic route also, you have to obtain LRN, loan registration number, from RBI. So as such, although it is an automatic route, but indirectly it goes to the RBI for review at least. Although RBI clearly writes in the letter where LRN is allotted that this should not be considered as a approval given by us, and all prescribed condition of automatic approval route has been adhered by you, and to ensure that that adher is your responsibility. So when you enter into agreement before receiving the money, now here also people do make mistake. They feel that, oh, it's automatic route, na? So you bring money, then you go to the RBI. It's not like that. The moment you enter into agreement, first you go to the RBI, take LRN, and then only money can come. The borrower can draw down for loan only after obtaining LRN. Monthly return, every month you have to submit return to the RBI within 7 working days, again through authorized dealer. Any change in your ECB, that also needs to be informed to the RBI. They have prescribed that what all changes will require prior approval of RBI are changes, modification in the drawdown, not RBI actually, AD Bank. These all powers are given to AD Bank. Change in the currency of borrowing, change of AD Bank. Here you are even allowed to change your AD Bank also. Presently you are dealing with X bank and tomorrow your whole group moves to some other bank. Then you are allowed to do. But in that case, your existing AD Bank has to give a no objection and the new AD Bank should consider you as their customer. Change in recognized lender, cancellation of LRN, change in end use ECB, these so many things are there. So for anything is there, you have to go to the authorized dealer. Conversion of ECB into equity, we discussed. So for that also some compliance is there. As and when the conversion happens, within 7 days you have to file form ECB2, which is normal course for ECB you have to file. Simultaneously you have to file form FCGPR also, which is a requirement for foreign direct investment. Lending in foreign currency. I think we have a time little less, so I will try to finish quickly. Lending in foreign currency, but actually, although in my presentation this is a 25% over, because borrowing and lending, rupee and foreign currency, so total 4 nature of transaction we are talking about. But this was the major transaction where FEMA plays role. So race 3 are not that I can say that regulated or not that much utilized. So here the considerably time will be less. Lending by an authorized dealer. Now our authorized dealer are also allowed to lend in foreign currency, which is very common. So any AD or its overseas branch can lend in foreign currency in the following circumstances. Extending credit facility to overseas wholly owned subsidiary or JV of Indian entity, provided at least 51% of the equity is held by Indian entity. So one Indian company is there, it is a subsidiary outside India. It requires a borrowing, nobody in that country is giving them, or due to whatever reason. It comes to the Indian bank that you give me a loan. Then they are allowed, subject to that the Indian company's shareholdings will be 51% in that company. Overseas branch of AD can grant loan against security of fund held in NRE FCNR deposit account. And AD can grant loan against security of fund held in FCNR account to the account holder, subject to the guideline issued by the RBI. So we have a many non-resident who have a FCNR account and they don't want to withdraw from that. So then they can go to the bank, and since FCNR is a foreign currency account, so against that they are allowed to borrow from bank in foreign currency. Overseas branch of AD can grant loan in normal course of banking business outside India. An AD can grant loan to its constitution in India for meeting their forex requirement against security fund held in RFC account subject to guideline issued by RBI. Constitution in India means within the bank. Within bank also they are allowed to give a foreign currency. And AD bank can grant loan to another AD subject to guideline issued by the RBI. So there is a separate guideline governing this. Lending by person other than AD. Now we are talking that other than AD who can give in loan in foreign currency. So first of all, who can have a money in foreign currency? You and me cannot have, a resident cannot have a money in foreign currency. So it's out of question that we can lend. So an Indian entity can lend to its wholly owned subsidiaries JV abroad constituted in accordance with overseas investment regulation. Now we have a subsidiary outside India. You have a fund available with you. So you can give them from your own fund in a foreign currency. So Indian company are allowed to give. The condition is there that you should be holding equity share capital in that company. A person resident in India can lend to its overseas importer customer. This is normal advance. When you are receiving something, it's not that every time you receive import goods and then make payment. There are some certain vendor or certain situation wherein you have to give money in advance. Then only they will ship the good. So up to $100,000 it is allowed. you can give. If it is more than $100,000, then in that case, guarantee of bank of an international repute outside India is required. Indian company can grant loan to the employee of their branch. Indian company is a branch outside India. Those employee want loan. So staff loan is a very common. So just because they are a employee of a foreign branch, they should not be deprived of that. So it is allowed, subject to condition that it should be for a personal purpose and should be in accordance with the lender's staff welfare scheme, loans, rules and other terms and conditions applicable to resident India. So if that employee would have been resident, what he would have been eligible, equivalent amount with the equivalent rules and regulation, it can be given to even if he is a non-resident. Foreign currency loan can be extended by Exim, IDBI, IFCI, ICAI, should be any other institution. These people also can give. Now we go to the borrowing in rupees. Yeah, up to $75,000. Yeah, that will come because resident individual giving to a non-resident. So it is a borrowing in foreign currency. It will come. Pardon? Yeah, means you are talking of Indian banks. Indian banks do give a foreign currency loan. Buyer's credit, supplier's credit, pre-shipment credit, post-shipment credit. These are all in foreign currency.
Subsidiary, the security can be other than the FD and what you have mentioned. It can be any other security also.
No security required. When you are giving to your company, who will give security?
No. The loan facility given by my Indian bank to my overseas branch and subsidiary.
Yeah.
Now my branch and subsidiary doesn't have any security there.
So parent company can give.
Parent give the collateral security. I mean the immovable property or other things. So in case of any problem, then liquidation of this Indian property will be done and the remittance will be done to the overseas branch. In case of a sub default, my security which has been provided here, that will be liquidated by the bank.
Yeah.
And then the remittance can go outside India for the repayment.
Yeah.
That will be done.
Yeah. Pardon?
A non-resident can give a foreign currency loan to a resident firm or a...
That is covered in subsequent slide. Now we go to the borrowing in rupees. So borrowing in rupees means you are receiving from a non-resident. Borrowing by person other than Indian company, borrowing by Indian company, and what are the end use restrictions. So a person resident in India, so people like us, can borrow in rupee on a non-repatriation basis from NRI or PI resident outside India subject to the following condition. So what are the conditions are there? Loan has to come in a convertible foreign exchange, remittance from outside India. It should be or one is a remittance has to come or out of NRE, NRO, FCNR, NRNR, NRSR account of a lender maintained with AD Bank in India. So, but now these NR, NR and NRSR accounts are no longer there. So, we are talking of only 3 accounts, NRE, NRO and FCNR account. So, if any NRI has such account in India, then from that account, he can give loan to his any relative or anybody in India subject to these all conditions. So, one condition is there that period of loan shall not exceed 3 years. The rate of interest shall not exceed 2% over the SBI PLR. Presently, SBI PLR is 14.75%. So, then loan will be costing you 16.75. You cannot pay more than that, but you can pay less than that. Borrowed amount shall not be allowed to be repatriated outside India. Naturally, you borrow from somebody and then you repatriate outside India. Is not allowed. And here, principal amount cannot go outside India, but interest can go outside India because it is a current account convertibility. So, under current account, interest can go outside India. Now, we talk about by Indian company. Borrowing in rupee. Indian company can borrow in rupee from a non-resident. So, it's the other way around. Not ECB, etc. But from NRI, PIO, you are borrowing in rupee. How it is possible? So, it can be done subject to that Indian company issues non-convertible debenture, NCDs. You have to bring the issue of the NCD, it has to be a public offer. Now this is something which we have observed, that many people have made mistakes in this. Somebody has some relative outside India, they have an NRE, NRO account in India, funds are lying there, their group company wants some money, from that account they give loan to that company without understanding that it is coming from a non-resident. Even many times it happens that bank is not aware only that you are a non-resident. As my previous speaker Dishan Bhai was mentioning, that when you become a non-resident and if you don't inform to your banker, how he will come to know? So he will continue your bank account like a normal resident saving account. But you are actually NRI. And then from that bank account, if your group company or somebody needs money, you will give a loan. This is not allowed. The company which is receiving the loan is making a default, and there can be consequences on that company. So it has to be a proper public offer for issue of NCD. The rate of interest shall not exceed PLR of SBI plus 3%. Redemption period should not be less than 3 years. Borrowing company should report detail of receipt of remittance for investment in NCD and issue as NCD within 30 days to the RBI. Reporting to RBI is required. Investment should be received either by of remittance from outside India or from NRE or FCNR account. Just see here, only NRE and FCNR accounts are there. NRO account is not there. So from rupee account you cannot pay. In case of borrowing by way of issue of NCD on repatriation basis, it is allowed. If it is on a repatriation basis, the percentage of NCD issued to NRI to the total paid up equity series of NCD issued should not exceed the prescribed FDI regulation applicable to that particular company. Because this is, again, you are receiving money from the non-resident. So it should be within that prescribed limit. Restriction on use of borrowed fund. Now, NCD has been issued to non-resident. Now, can you use that money for anything? Whatever you want to do. So, no, you cannot do. It can be used only for the purpose of business. So, for utilization in business other than borrower's own business. So, whatever borrower's own business is there, he can utilize that money for that. But again, borrower's own business should not be off. Business of cheat fund or a Nidhi company, agriculture or plantation activity or real estate business or construction of farmhouse, trading in TDR. Now, real estate does not include development of township, construction or residential commercial premises, road or bridges. For this purpose, real estate exclude this. So, if you are in the business of this, then you can utilize that money for this business.
Then what will it come? Real estate does not include. What will real estate include?
No, your normal business.
Real estate business will not include development of township and construction.
No, these all are covered. So apart from that, like say buying or the main they want to stop is that you do not utilize the foreign currency money just to rig by buying and selling.
Trading is not allowed.
Something like that, yeah. But if you are a real developer, yeah, so you are allowed. You can take that. Yeah, allowed. For day-to-day routine business, it's allowed. Only if you are in the business of any of this item, then it is not allowed even for your business purpose also. That is what the mistake people are doing. I told you, that somebody has gone abroad, he is a director of company, money is lying in his bank account, okay, transfer. It has to be public offer. So hardly this route is utilizable. It's not possible. For any investment by way of capital or otherwise in any company or partnership firm or proprietary concern or any other entity. So you cannot again utilize this money for making further investment in some other entity. And for re-lending, it is not allowed. However, the RBI may permit resident / company to use the borrowed fund for on-lending or re-lending to the infrastructure sector. So again, special treatment is given to infrastructure sector. Keeping in fixed deposit with Indian Bank pending utilization of permissible use. So this is allowed, that you got the money, NCD you have issued, now money has come, temporarily you want to park in the fixed deposit, RBI will allow you. The above restriction apply to company as well as to a person other than company. Lending in rupee now. Somebody is lending in rupee to non-resident. So there again first comes authorized dealer. Authorized dealer can always lend to non-resident. Rupee lending by AD to NRI is permissible. So this situation we are talking about, that there is somebody NRI who want money in India. So as per FEMA, he is a non-resident. He is going to the bank asking for a loan, whether allowed or not. Bank can give or not. Bank can give against the security of state or other security held in the name of borrower, against the security of immovable property for any other purpose as may be as the policy of the authorized dealer. There are certain conditions are there, which are: utilize of borrowed funds should be for meeting borrower's personal requirement, his own business purpose. He may be doing some business in India, then it is allowed. The loan should not be utilized for the prohibited activity. Prohibited activity we discussed in the previous slide. RBI's directive on such advance should be complied with. The loan amount should not be credited to NRE, FCNR or NRNR account. That loan has to go to the NRO account because it's a rupee loan. So in any case, even if you try to deposit, the bank will not accept, but it cannot go to this foreign currency account. The loan amount should not be remitted outside India. It cannot go outside India. Repayment of loan has to be by way of inward remittance from abroad or debit to your NRE, FCNR accounts. Now lending by AD to NRI employee for ESOP. So again we are talking of the NRI, but they are employee of some company. Company is giving them ESOP. They don't have fund in India. What do? They can go to the bank. Bank can give them. The conditions are there that ESOP scheme should be as per the policy approved by the AD's board. The loan amount should not exceed lower of the following: 90% of the purchase price of the share or INR rupees 20 lakh. The amount should be paid directly to the company and not to the employee. Repayment of loans should be made by way of inward remittance or debit to borrower's NRE, FCNR account. The loan should be included in reckoning capital market exposure, because indirectly this money is going into the shares of that company. So that's why banks have a norms how much they can invest in a capital market. So then this amount also will be added into that. Housing loan to NRI, like how ESOP. Similarly, NRI want to buy house in India. So then if he don't have a fund, what does he do? He can go to the bank and ask for a loan. The conditions are there. The quantum of loan, margin money and period of repayment should be at par with housing loan provided to resident Indian. So whatever bank is providing loan to the resident Indian, whatever terms and conditions are imposed, that terms and conditions will be imposed on non-resident also. The loan amount should not be credited to FCNR or NRE account because it cannot go outside India. The loan should be fully secured by equitable mortgage of property or other asset wherever required. Repayment of loan again has to happen out of the inward remittance or a debit to the NREs or FCNR account. Here only one leeway is there, that if out of that property some rental income is earned, then from that rental income he is allowed to make the repayment of loan. See, when debit to this account, that means you are converting your foreign currency into Indian rupee. So then that's good for India. It's a welcome decision. The rate of interest should conform to the directives of RBI and NHB as the case may be. Repayment of loan by relative. Now this reverse situation is there. Some non-resident has taken the loan. He doesn't have money to pay. He is your relative. You have money to pay. You want to repay. You are repaying on behalf of non-resident. So then whether you are allowed to repay or not, so it's allowed, subject to condition that it should be credited to borrower's loan account. So directly you credit to that account or through the bank account of such relative. So you deposit in his bank account and then it is given to the lender. Here the word relative means relative as defined under Companies Act. Now to NRI PIO employee of Indian body corporate. Now Indian company may have some employees outside India and they want loan in India. Earlier we have discussed they want loan outside India. So in a foreign currency, this is we are talking of in rupee. So to NRI employee loan in rupee in India by his company or any body corporate. So what are the conditions? The loan should be only for personal purpose including purchase of housing property. Housing property, the rules are more or less same what is applicable to bank. The loans will be in accordance with the lender staff welfare scheme, stroke staff housing scheme. Whatever scheme is there of the company, it should be as per that scheme. The loans will not be utilized for prohibited activity. The loan amounts will be credited to borrower's NRO account. It can go only in NRO account, not to FCNR or NRE account. Repayment has to happen by way of an inward remittance or debit to NRO NRE account. The loan agreement should contain appropriate clause to this effect. Now to NRI relative by resident individual. You have an NRI relative. He wants money in India from you in a rupee. You are not remitting outside India. Sorry, this is you are remitting outside India. So then I think somebody was asking LRN scheme. So that is what come here. So presently resident are allowed to remit outside India per year 75,000 US dollar. So this should be within that limit. So it should be interest free. Minimum maturity period of loans should be 1 year. The loan should be within overall limit of US dollar 75,000 per financial year. End use should be for the borrower's personal requirement for his own business in India. The loan should not be utilized singly or in association with other person for the prohibited activity. The loan amount should be credited to the borrower's NRO account. The loan amount should not be remitted outside India. Repayment of loans should be by way of inward remittance or debit to NRO, NRE, FCNR account or out of the sale proceed. So wherever the amount was invested, whenever sale proceed come, if you want to make repayment out of that, then it is possible. Change in residential status. When resident become non-resident, then in that situation, what will happen to his bank account, fixed deposit, this, that? I think that all thing would have been covered by some or other speaker. Here, I am restricting myself only to the if loan is there, what will happen to loan? So resident borrower becoming non-resident. Today we have borrowed something, tomorrow we become non-resident. What will happen to that borrowed money? Because then for AD bank it's something like a lending to a non-resident. So AD should be satisfied about the reason to continue the loan. Otherwise they may say that you first pay the loan. The period of loan should not change. So whatever original period was decided, it should be only for that period. As long as borrower continue to remain person outside India, repayment has to be by way of either inward remittance or debit to a NRE or FCNR account. Change in residential status other way. Lender become non-resident. That also is possible. So in case a resident lender having an advance loan to a person resident in India become non-resident, the repayment of loan by resident borrowers will be by way of credit to NRO account. So whatever is NRO account is in India is there, you have to repay and money should go into that account only. For this change of, no. It continues the same terms and conditions. Yeah, now what I have done this time that in my presentation itself, I have only raised the question instead of asking from the audience. So you are also free to ask. But I thought that after this whole presentation, how much people have grasped. So if answer to this question can be given, then probably I am successful in delivering my lecture. But if time permits, then only I think we can do this.
Sir, in case of NCD, what is the ceiling that you said that as per the FDI guideline, the NCD or equity equivalent to that to be issued. So what kind of the parameters is that? How much NCD can be issued?
No parameter. You have to see that when NCDs are, if NCDs are equity, then under FDI regulation, whether any sectoral cap is there to your industry.
NCD cannot be.
No. But for the purpose of calculating FDI limit, if there is a sectoral cap, then this NCD to be added into that. Yeah, for that purpose. So although presently sectoral cap is also there in very, very limited industry. Otherwise, you can say almost more than 90% industries, 100% FDI is allowed. Yeah. Now it's your turn. So anybody want to reply or how do we take it forward? Or expect me only to answer? Okay. So whether loan can be granted under LRS, I think we already discussed, it is allowed. Can an individual who has availed loan abroad while as a NRI repay the same on return to India under LRS as a resident? It will be allowed, again subject to $75,000. No, you become now resident. You came back. You become resident. So under LRN scheme, you are allowed to make every year up to 75,000 remittance outside India. No. This is the question is there. Oh, whether loan can be granted under LRS. Yeah, so you are a resident. You want to grant loan to some non-resident. Then it is allowed subject to 75,000 under LRN scheme. No. Anyway, under LRN scheme, $75,000, no restriction is there. No, because that may be a slide for giving loan to relative. So there I have used that it should be within $75,000 limit. But giving loan outside India within 75,000 is permissible. As per Companies Act. Companies Act. Pardon?
The word which is used is like this, that a residential individual can grant a loan to NRI relative by way of cross-check, electronic transfer, subject to the following conditions. So NRI relative word which is used.
So this slide is there when you are giving loan to NRI relative, but this is also covered within that 75,000 limit. That doesn't mean that under 75,000 you cannot give to other than relative. Even if it is relative, it is covered within 75,000. That's what this slide is there. I think second we did, na? Yeah. The third one, can NRI PIO avail loan from an authorized dealer for acquiring flat house in India for his own residential use against the security of fund held in NRE fixed deposit account, FCNR account? Can NRI PIO avail housing loan in rupee from an AD or a housing finance institution for purchase of residential accommodation or for the purpose of repair, renovation, improvement or residential accommodation? Can NRI PIO avail of housing loan in rupee from his employer in India? If a rupee loan was taken by NRI PIO from an AD or a housing finance institution for purchase of residential property, can the NRI PIO repatriate the sale proceed of such property? Loan was taken in rupee. So when sale proceed is there, can he take away the sale proceed outside India? No. Yeah. We are not on that $75,000 scheme. When you sell, see, you have taken loan, you have taken a property at a loan. Now loan is discharged, property is free. You are selling the property. Can you take back your sale proceed outside India? No. Over and above that. Correct. So when you become non-resident and whatever part of loan you have repaid by way of a inward remittance, that much part can go outside India, balance cannot go. That is separate. That is there for everybody. This is over, because see, ultimately you brought that foreign currency. So that's why you are allowed to take it back. Yeah. Can an individual resident lend money to close relative NRI PIO? I think we have already covered this. Can an individual resident repay loan of close relative NRI to bank in India? This also we have covered. Can an Indian party extend loan or guarantee to an overseas entity without any equity participation in that? It's not possible. That has to, in that company, your equity participation has to be there. Whether, in fact, on this, in many companies, some issue has arisen, although we are running out of time, otherwise, very important. Can I take another 5 minutes? See, what has happened in many companies, that in foreign country, it is easy to incorporate company without remitting any capital. Even without going abroad, your nominee can incorporate a company in your name. That is also permissible in many countries. And the share capital will be what? $1. And that $1 also, there is no compulsion that you have to remit. Straight away you become shareholder without remitting. What has happened in few cases, which live cases we came across, and a big corporate houses have made mistake, that they have incorporated a company, $1 capital never remitted, and then that company, for doing whatever business etc., wanted either loan or a corporate guarantee from you, which Indian company has given, because they said that it's my subsidiary only, and I am holding 100% equity of that company. Even $1 can be 100%. RBI, when it came to the notice of RBI said that no, nothing doing. That $1 also, since you have not remitted, that means you have contravened the FEMA regulation, because it is not your subsidiary, and we have represented that, see the ROC record of that country, it shows that I am a shareholder. But RBI is not accepting that. It is telling that from India remittance has not gone, so you are not shareholder of that company, and now by giving corporate guarantee or a loan, you have contravened the FEMA regulation, and now you undo that and then go for a compounding. Last, whether equity investment in overseas wholly owned subsidiary JV can be converted into loan or other form of funded exposure like preference capital, debentures, etc. This is allowed, but subject to RBI approval. With this, I will end my presentation. Thanks for a patient listening. Thank you, everybody.
Friends, in any form of cricket, the last session of the day is very vital and important. And Mr. Prakash has done the full justice to the spectators today, and I request Mr. Dipendra to put up the hearty vote of thanks.
Dear all, I would say very few words. In my entire life or 10 years career, I never attended borrowing and lending in foreign currency such a wonderful session. I request everybody to join me. A wonderful